some things that he can't talk about. And you see, like, there's things blurred out. You see, like, for this picture, there's a face blurred out. The sky is blurred out. There's a reason for that. And Alan was just telling me, like, there are people so good at identifying, and maybe there could be some AI out there that identify places, locations, and they are very careful about that. And by the way, I just want to let people know, Alan has a day job, and he's probably working at least 40 hours a week in his day job. And then he comes home and he spends another 40 to 60 hours per week doing this. And I am in total awe and inspiration of Alan. He is like running this thing like a mission, like a job. And so we definitely, on that note, give our thanks to Alan and everybody else putting in a lot of hard work. But what do you think are some of the misconceptions that people have about what's actually going on?
I have to say, there's a huge thank you to all the organizations that are out there that are legitimate organizations, which there are a lot of, and we do work with a
Yeah.
lot of other organizations. We can't do it alone, you know what I mean? And a lot of times, whether it's for budgeting reasons or resource reasons, or sometimes, the minimum order quantity might be like, 1,000, but we only need 500. We might reach out to another organization that might need another 500 for themselves. So the ultimate goal is to save lives. You know what I mean? We're not looking to be the number one heroes or the only organization or the top organization. If we can save lives, great. If somebody can save more lives than us, great for them too. But as long as we can save one life, you know what I mean? We already did a lot. So our job is to just save as many as we can, and that's true for most of the organizations that are out there. But yeah, we all dedicate a lot of time into this, tied into our jobs and everything else. I mean, some people literally just completely just stopped working. Even like Harri, for example. I mean, he's literally been living there. You know what I mean? He left his home and just said, "All right, I'm gonna live here for now." Hey, mom and dad and sister, brother, whoever he may have in Estonia, without getting into it. I mean, they're there, taking care of his home while he's in Ukraine helping Ukrainian people. You know what I mean? So it's pretty amazing. So huge thank you to all the volunteers in Ukraine aid operations. I wish we can meet one day in person. That would be like the ultimate. That to me would be the ultimate reward. For when the war is over and Ukraine is won, and we can all go down to Crimea and rent a beach house and hang out together and think, where's that ship? Is it somewhere out there, or where do you guys think it's sunk? You know what I mean? So that would be the ultimate satisfaction, I think, for really anybody in our organization.
Definitely. I think that's a very interesting point. I mean, I definitely did not have that perspective of intention, right? I think that's very key.
Yeah, no, it's tough because, I mean, listen, nobody in this organization was ever involved with anything like this. I mean, a lot of us have done volunteer work or even run volunteer organizations, but not international ones in the time of a war with sourcing body armor and helmets and stuff like that. That's nothing any of us have ever dealt with before. It was completely new for all of us, and learning to work with people abroad. I mean, some people are used to working with people abroad. Some people haven't. I mean, for some people, they don't understand what time zone differences are. You know what I mean? That they just think that everybody's in the same general time zone. They don't understand what, plus 7 hours or minus 7 hours or whatever it may be. So there's a lot of learning curves with that. In terms of the processes and policies and procedures, we try to do as much research as we can, especially on the legal side. We don't want to step into any illegal areas. I'm not trying to go to prison abroad in the U.S., anywhere. I don't think anybody in the organization is. So we definitely make sure we check all the legalities. But in terms of like on the ground finalizing stuff, a lot of it we have to figure out on the fly. I mean, at the end of the day, it is a war zone, and policies and procedures change all the time. So like even this past week, the laws changed for, like, even in Germany, of what they allow as humanitarian aid going to Ukraine. Poland and Ukraine changed what they allow to go through the borders for humanitarian aid and the processes for doing so. And it literally changes while we have somebody driving with that stuff, or while we have stuff in the air, in transit, and customs doesn't care if it was shipped out before. They say, hey, today's the date that it got here, and this is what it says. You know what I mean? This is the law. So yeah, there's a lot of learning. I've learned a lot. Everybody's learned a lot, and this is knowledge that we can take forward after this is over. This has inspired a lot of us to hopefully want to continue to help people all around the world, and then to help rebuild Ukraine. Once this is over, even though we're not going to be supplying body armor, there's going to be a huge need for, ordnance collection and for unexploded ordnance, and like, metal detectors and explosive suits, and therapy and mental health care and physical health care and rebuilding supplies and tools and all this stuff. You know what I mean? So it's not going to be over just when the fighting stops. We want the fighting to stop just so the life-saving, in terms of bulletproof vests and stuff can come to an end. But we know that there's going to be a huge need for a continuation of resources that we're going to have to continue.
You actually told me Ukraine ADOPS wants to continue its journey in the sense that it's going to become something bigger.
So yeah, we definitely want to not only, once the rebuilding phase and everything like that is over in Ukraine, which is going to take a really long time, we definitely want to continue to help other parts of the world too. It's not like there's not necessarily on a conflict side, but there's a lot of humanitarian aid that's needed around the world. And if we already have this fantastic network of channels of getting resources, even if it's boots and water filtration and solar panels, whatever it may be, diesel generators, vehicles, there's a need for this all over the world. We can then help other parts of the world. We've all realized how gratifying helping others can be. Not everything has to be repaid, monetarily, but just sometimes it's nice to know that you've helped. It's just, it's nice to put your head down at night and know that you helped make somebody else's day that much easier. Because that's always something that I'd go to bed thinking about before Ukraine ADOPS was a thing, or even before the conflict in Ukraine. This part of it's really been going on since 2014. But even then, in any other conflict around the world, I've always thought about people elsewhere when they go to sleep, and do they have the same comfort level of rolling up in a nice cozy bed and taking a nice hot shower and having a good hot dinner. And a lot of people don't have that. And if I know that I can make them going to sleep a little bit easier, and having a little bit more of a comfortable life, that means a lot to me. And there's a lot of people that think the same way in our organization. I think that's one of the other things that we realized about each other. We're all very, very different, whether on our own political level, in terms of what we believe in for our own country or our own selves, or what we believe in anything else outside of this. We all have this understanding that we want to just preserve life and help others, and that at the end of the day, regardless of politics and anything else, human life is key. We're all humans at the end of the day, and we all have the same needs. So let's figure out how we can do it together.
It's really, really easy by now to feel numb, and you already see that on the news that it's not being talked about as much. At the end of the day, though, it's not right to think of Ukrainians as people over there on the other side of the world, and it has nothing to do with me. No, it's like these are people with the same needs as me. These were people living, working in tech, working as farmers, working as so many different things, and they've had their lives uprooted, for all the wrong reasons. And it's really on us. You can see how much of an impact the grassroots effort is having on these people's lives. And what happens when we allow for Russia to take over? What happened in Mariupol when, Russia has taken 1 million people out of Ukraine, including 30% of them being children. They sent them to Eastern Russia, and they have no intention of sending them back. That's kidnapping. It's appalling what's going on.
Very early on in the war, scrolling through Twitter, I saw a very powerful image. It was of a rabbi and his son standing in a building and just saying a prayer. And if you were to see this image, you would think that it's somewhere in Israel, somewhere in New York, somewhere that's just, when you think of Hasidic Jews, you'd think somewhere outside of Ukraine, right? But no, this picture it was right in Ukraine, and it talks about a father and son that they're defending their homeland and stuff like that. And I said, wow, I'm really interested in this guy. I said, plus he has the most amazing beard I have ever seen anybody have. I've met plenty of rabbis in my lifetime, and then I started doing a little research on him, and I realized that this guy has literally been fighting in Donbass since 2014. So he's not, it's not like the conflict just started and he joined. So his son is now fighting now because the country got invaded. His son was in college. So in this photo here, the rabbi is second from the right. That's the guy with the very long white beard that's very perfectly trimmed, as you can see there. His son is second from the left on there. So it's just when I saw that image, I said, I want to see if I can connect to them and help them. So for like 2 months, I tried reaching out to them, and I couldn't get in contact with them. And eventually, somehow, for some reason, the son decided to answer me I think it was on Twitter. And he gave me his signal number, and we started chatting. And understandably so, they were almost like skeptical of that we wanted to help them. And I'm like, look, here's everything about me. Here's where we're at in Ukraine. let us try and help you guys. You know what I mean? I want to help you guys. And I know they're on the front lines. So eventually I did connect them on the ground over there. And when they made their trip recently, they met them and they gave them new plate sets. They had some old beat up plate sets. They gave them new plate sets. The vehicle you see in the background was donated to us by a gentleman as well. I think that's the one donated. We had one car donated, one car we purchased, but that's one of the two cars. I forget which two, but for some reason they're all Mitsubishis. Everything that's over there for right now is all Mitsubishis. A lot of Pajeros, new ones, old ones, hybrid ones, electric ones, diesel ones. Wow. Lots of Pajeros, but they don't break down. They last through everything. If you want to see actually some of the videos and photos of their trip out east, closer to the front lines, delivering equipment, Harri recently shared some of the videos from it of like, it's rainy season right now and the roads are just flooded and they're having to have, you know, farmers drag them in tractors through with the Sprinter vans and stuff. It's pretty interesting. So definitely check out Harri's Twitter to see more about their journey. Yeah, that's the fun right there.
What is Harri's Twitter? You know, I can just put it up.
So it's
Harri?
It's Twitter / Harri HARRI_EST for Estonia. That's the photo right there. Those are the new body armor that we got them, and he's holding the thermal optic that we got them as well. So that's going to help them, you know, being able to do night patrols and seeing out a little bit further in the distance at night. So the thermal there, if whoever's watching this, if you're an Amazon donor, that's an Amazon donation from the U.S. That was a little bit more complicated to get there because we couldn't just ship this. One of the guys in our team actually traveled to Ukraine and brought two suitcases full of drones and thermal optics. So that was an interesting story of bags getting lost.
Is that because of laws? Is it like, why couldn't you just ship that?
So thermal optics, these are not ITAR. There's different regulations for optics. I've learned a whole bunch of this regulation stuff, but so there's different levels. So these that we provided, like them, what you see in this picture, are a lower level of thermal optics. So they're consumer grade optics. They're not military grade. So they're definitely good for, you know, a specific purpose, but they can be shipped. They're just a little bit harder to ship. Not all companies will touch them. And like certain countries won't allow you to ship through them within Europe specifically. So for that, it was easier to just have somebody bring it with them because there's nothing wrong with it. Plus, we have all the paperwork necessary. Also, when we are bringing stuff, going back to our like making sure we check everything legally, we make sure we have all the legal paperwork that if we need it, we have it. You know what I mean? So we can show we declare everything here. This is what we have. Here's the paperwork for it, and this is where it's going. So it's pretty easy with that. It was easier to do that than it was to ship it. That's the reason for that.
That's Harri. The guy with the mask is Harri.
Yep.
Like this, Harri doesn't show his face. Although I think Harri did say if they reach $1 million in donations, he will take it off.
Yep. So the reason he's covering his face, I mean, you know, it's also become part of the identity and the image. Going back to him kind of representing all Estonians. You know, it's almost like the mysterious figure that represents all of Estonia. You know what I mean? This blonde Estonian man that came to Ukraine with all the steel plates. You know, who is he? You know, it's almost like Batman. You know what I mean? You don't know who's under the mask. You know what I mean? Is it Clark Kent or not Clark Kent? That's Superman. But in any case, even Superman, is it Clark Kent or who is it? Bruce Wayne. That would be Batman. So that's kind of part of the reason. The other part of the reason is security too. I mean, look, I mean, he is from a country that's just a few countries over, and Estonia is, you know, most Estonians are supporting. But going back to Estonia being a, you know, Soviet country for many years, there are people that have Russian affiliation and ties there. So I mean, he has to look out for himself too, and his family and friends there. So that there's a few reasons for it. But yeah, I mean, if he reaches $1 million and that can help save a bunch of lives, he'll take it off. So no, those are steel plates. Those are still uncoated. So on that steel plate, so this is actually pretty cool. So you'll see on the plates, the one that's all the way on the right, you can kind of see some writing stamped on it. So that's actually the Hardox marking. That's from a big steel plate that was Hardox. It looks that color because it oxidizes quickly. So it's not rusted, it's just oxidized. The white stickers that you see on everything, those are the batch numbers for the steel plates. So that way, you know, we know if something fails, we know which plate set or series that came from. Those are still to be coated before they go on somebody. So those are kind of raw steel plates. The coating part's the easier part, and sourcing the materials to do that's easier than the steel plates themselves. But in this picture here, it's actually two organizations together. So on the right is Harri. Next to him, that's my father-in-law, Yuri, who's also part of the organization. He's been an integral part in terms of helping us with making contacts and getting the paperwork that we need to get things over there and figuring out, who's part of what unit and stuff, and even translating in certain situations. So he's been really important over there.
And your father-in-law is both a Ukrainian and American citizen, right?
Yeah. So I mean, he could have my whole family that's over there in Ukraine. I mean, they could have came to the U.S. if they wanted to, but their level of patriotism is such that they felt like it was their obligation and duty to stay within Ukraine. He's also within the category of being able to leave. Age-wise, he's okay to leave, but he wants to stay. My mother-in-law wanted to stay. My sister-in-law wanted to stay. But if you go back to that photo for a second, I just wanted to point out. So if you'll notice, so you see the Ukraine Aid Ops sticker, the magnet on the right-hand side, closer to Harri and Yuri. On the other side over there, you see a different symbol, and actually in Ukrainian it says Dlya Heroiv, which means for the heroes. So that's another volunteer organization started by a U.S. veteran named Tay, who's a medic, who is on the front lines doing escorts, evacuating people from the war zones, civilians and soldiers alike. And that's his organization. So we're giving some plates to them so they can stay safe. And we've given a lot of medical supplies to them, and we've helped them a lot. They've helped us a lot. That's a great organization. So also check out Dlya Heroiv. That's them picking up medical supplies from a warehouse. So we found a contact that was able to help us source a bunch of medical supplies in a warehouse. So as you can see, they're extremely happy in this photo because that's a lot of needed medical supplies that they're going to be able to take with them to the front lines to help save a lot of lives.
Amazing.
The guy on the left of this photo, I forget his name. I'm bad with names. I'm sorry. I have to remember 40 within our organization alone. But he's a local Ukrainian. He's from Ukraine, but before the war started, I mean, he was part of a rock band. I mean, he's like a rock musician. What do you call it? He even performed for the troops and everybody over there. He's performing on the front lines just to cheer people up a little bit. But he's a rock star turned medic, translator / hero evacuator. So really cool.
We can come back if we have a little bit more time to these photos. There's a lot of cool photos. These are all kind of recent ones. This is a Estonian media interviewing Harri. Mm-hmm. So starting here in the next two photos, here's Harri. This guy, Isaac, on the left is a former American soldier. And, I was very timid. Maybe a lot of you guys listening right now also feel like I did. I was very anxious about donating money to Ukraine because like Alan said before, there are scammers out there. There's people in it for themselves. And, obviously there are some people that are vetted and promoted by the media or something. And so you feel better about it. But it was very important for me that I do my homework on this organization. But how could I do my homework not being in Ukraine? So I actually asked American soldiers that I knew were serving, that I met through Facebook or other places, and to vet Harri. And they just say, Harri's the guy. Harri's the dude.
This is a steel plate. This is already a coated steel plate. You'll notice that on the upper left-hand one where it was hit by a 7.62 armor-piercing round, it didn't penetrate, it held. But as you can see, a lot of the material off the front of it came off. So you can see the little middle circle. It kind of looks like an eye. So to kind of tell you, the pupil is literally the bullet where it stopped. Around it, your eyeball itself, that's the steel, and around it, what looks like just lines and eyelashes and stuff like that. That's that rubberized coating that goes on top of it, which prevents the spalling. So you'll notice the spalling goes outwards. So what happens is when the bullet hits, if it wasn't coated like that and coated in the way that we coat things, the shrapnel would literally hit and can kill you. You know what I mean?
Wow.
So it's designed where if it hits you, it goes away from you. You know what I mean? When it hits you.
Incredible. If you look at the other shots, there's three other shots. Do they look different because they were shot at an angle? Is that why they're
no, different?
They're just different bullets.
Different bullets. It looks like range could be a part of it as well. The gun that it's shot out of has a lot to do with it as well, and the muzzle velocities, distances. I think distances. They tried several different distances and stuff like that. So
this was like different. A test plate.
Yep, exactly.
So I wanted to highlight this photo, and we have some pretty famous people in this photo. James Vasquez, who just the second guy from the right. So Harri's, I think, is in the far left, right? James Vasquez is a former American soldier who gained a lot of popularity going to Ukraine, a lot of media coverage, and he had a unit and was. Sorry, go ahead. I know. I see
You
you want
said
to say
second. You
something.
said second. Yeah, you said second from the right. So again, you confuse. My father-in-law gets
Oh,
confused for
sorry,
somebody
sorry,
else.
sorry,
He's
sorry,
only
sorry.
second from the
Second
left.
from the left. Second from the left. Okay, so we're gonna get to that in a second. So these are some of the guys that I use to make sure that Ukraine aid ops is legit. You see the work that they're doing here. They're doing incredible journey. They're doing incredible work. I'm talking about now how I verified this organization, but you see also the amount of investment that these people are putting into making miracles happen in Ukraine, saving lives. I mean, that's really, I think, what it comes down to is you have such a diversity of people, experts, people who've done this, people who haven't done this, people who have come from different backgrounds, and they're really coming together to save lives of people who deserve to be like you and me sitting in our homes. It's 2:30 where I'm at, or 3:30 already, and I should be asleep, soundly, and they can't. They have their lives uprooted. So I really want to push how important it is to be empathetic of what's going on in Ukraine, of the people, because it's really about people more than the land itself. I think although land is important, the people are being affected.
And like I said earlier, it's not that we're waiting to reach that amount before we start using that, money to start purchasing that equipment. It's once we reach a certain amount that we can pay for, X amount of sets, we're going to buy those right
Right.
away. You know what I mean? That's just our ultimate goal of what we're trying to reach in that specific campaign. You could see all of the ways that you can help. It's a very helpful
Yeah.
link because it really, Linktree is cool. It ties in everything, so you could see all of our social medias. You can sign up for our newsletter. We just started a weekly newsletter. So keeping up with Twitter could be nuts sometimes. It's a lot. So sometimes it's easier just to, read one email while you're sitting in the bathroom in the morning or something like that. So we can make that happen. This is a funny photo. So the guy on the right, he is not a ghost. He actually has legs. It's just he was standing in a place that gives away some of the location. So I had to get those blurred out. But so this photo was used by James Vasquez in his interview when he did a pretty interesting, very in-depth YouTube interview. What do you call it? So he brought up this photo, and it was funny because he mentions the people that are in this photo, and he goes, there's Harri P. on the left over there from Ukrainian Aid Operations. He mentions Malcolm Nance. He's the gentleman in the middle over there. He mentions Rawlings. That's the very tall guy over there, and in the back also has a great foundation. And then himself, obviously. And then they were asked about the guy on the right, and they said, "Oh, this is this unnamed Canadian volunteer. I'm not supposed to mention any names." And we were looking at his face, and I thought it was really, really funny because I'm looking at this and I go, "That's no Canadian volunteer. That's my father-in-law, Yuri." So it was really funny in the last two slides ago, or last slide, when you said James is the second from the left, and I was like, "Nope, that's Yuri." So I'm like, "Why does everybody keep confusing him?"
Right. So yeah, I mean, just the things I've heard about that your father-in-law, just inspirational. Funny that he's in this picture, but also show you how involved he is in everything going on here. Again, in this photo, this is Harri. Harri's on the left. The next guy, a lot of you guys should know, Malcolm Nance. He used to be a reporter, and he at some point it was all over the news. He's like, these people need help. I'm gonna go help. And he was been in Army intelligence and a lot of different places in the military service. And he's just like, I'm gonna go. And he's on the front lines right now, I believe.
I have no idea. I can't speak on
Yeah.
what he's up to in terms of on his day-to-day activities.
Ripley.
There's a lot going on.
Rip Rawlings is the guy right next to Malcolm Nance. So he's the guy in the middle, and I think he was a former Army colonel. As far as do you remember?
Yeah, so Lieutenant Colonel, what do you call it,
Lieutenant
Rip
Colonel.
Rawlings. It's not only does he have a badass name, but he's a badass dude in general.
Yeah.
He's a really cool dude. So I
Right.
respect everybody that's out there that's trying to help. You know what I mean? We meet people, and it's interesting because even from what I understand of how this meeting was put together, everybody's skeptical of everybody. You know what I mean? You don't know who
Right.
these people are. It's a war
Absolutely.
zone. You don't know what people's intentions are. So, but it's great when you do meet, and a beer and some cigarettes. You know what I mean? That's the best way for an introduction. Somebody asked on the presentation if we're based out of Canada or US. So yeah, we have members both in the US and Canada. We have 40 members. Here, I guess I'll give you my little closing end statement before I head out of here. So again, Ukrainian Aid Operations is a team, an all-volunteer team of people all over the world from all different backgrounds, all have different things that are going on in their daily lives, that all realize that, okay, hey, we want to help save lives in Ukraine. How can we do it? What can we do together to help? And that's kind of how it started snowballing. But in terms of where we are in the world, like I said earlier, every continent except Antarctica. But I'm sure there's a penguin up there that wants to join.
I hope, if you were doubtful before, that you have some confidence in what these guys are doing. And we talked a lot at length, but you can obviously reach out to Alan. His Twitter is below. He lives in South Florida. He is in this to win this. I mentioned at the beginning that, after we had left the Soviet Union, my family was refugees for 10 years. None of us really wanted to go back to Ukraine. I always didn't grow up with the happiest thoughts of Ukraine. But the Soviet Ukraine that I knew is not the same Ukraine as today. Ukraine is making their own identity. Ukraine wants to be Ukraine. They don't want to be part of Russia or have anything to do with Russia anymore. Obviously, a lot of Ukrainians speak Russian. There's a Russian component. But this war and the war that started 8 years ago has changed all that. I know plenty of Ukrainians myself, both in the States and in Ukraine, and amazing people, amazing. And as I mentioned at the beginning, with the Pew Research study, it's insulting to say that this country is a Nazi country, especially Russia. Of all countries calling this country a Nazi country, Russia should not be doing that. I wanted to close out because I mentioned it was very important for me to verify this organization. So we mentioned Harri, we mentioned Malcolm Nance. Malcolm Nance is the black guy second to the left. Rick Rawlings is the guy in the center, the tall guy, former lieutenant colonel. All these guys are former military, all U.S. military except for Harri. Harri's Estonian military. I don't know. The guy on the right is Alan's father-in-law, his wife's father. And I don't know if he has military experience, but he's a huge patriot of Ukraine and also American citizen. James, the guy that you see closest in the sunglasses, he was part of a unit for about a month and a half, and he retired from the army, and he came back to the States. He had a ticket, and they are selling their house, right? I think they already sold it. They sold their house and are moving to Ukraine. He plans to rejoin the unit, and he wants to spend his future rebuilding Ukraine. It is this grassroots love why Ukraine will succeed, why Ukraine will flourish. The more and more that I speak to people in Ukraine ADOPS or related to Ukraine ADOPS, some of these soldiers, I'm in awe. And with that energy in there, I am full-heartedly will believe that despite the struggles, despite whatever you hear in Severodonetsk right now, that the Ukrainian army and the volunteer soldiers are taking a beating, whatever, they will succeed in the long term. Because the energy that's coming into this is God sent. It's miracle work.
Your family, like you came as a refugee from there. So I mean, I was born here in the U.S., but my parents came here as teenagers, as refugees here from the Soviet Union, and grew up here. So they kind of had a very similar idea of like they almost were scared of us going to Ukraine because they're like, oh my God, like no, you guys are gonna get like kidnapped, like you're an American, like you're gonna get like somebody's gonna rip you off. And it's like, what are you talking about? So they ended up going with us because they were so scared, and they loved it. So they ended up going back every time that we went. My parents came just because they love going there now. You know what I mean? So. It is such an amazing place. I mean, in the last 31 years since it's been this current modern Ukraine, it's really flourished. A lot more so than many other places in the world at the rate that it has, with a sense of pride. And I think that Russia is using that as they're turning nationalism into Nazism, and it's a very thing. You know what I mean? And Ukrainian nationalism is different than anywhere else, really. And it's important to be proud of your country. You shouldn't think that it's the only country in the world, but you should be proud of where you're from. No, just thank you for everybody who's been a supporter of Ukrainian aid operations. Thank you to everybody who's a part of the organization, affiliated with the organization, vendors that have been helping us, suppliers, shippers, whatever it may be. Huge thank you to you, Vic, for setting this up and for having this. for helping spread the word. And most of all, thank you to all of our supporters and donors. Without you guys, I mean, like I said earlier, we would be 40 random people from around the world trying to pocket our own money together, which really wouldn't have anywhere near the impact of what it's having now. So yeah, huge thank you to our supporters, and a huge thank you to the people of Ukraine. They're fighting for democracy right now to an extent. They have the support of the world behind them, but support is only there if you continue to help. You know what I mean? If you turn a blind eye, if everybody just says, what can I do? What can I do? What can I do? Everybody would think that way, and nobody would do anything. So continue to support, continue to help, continue to be vigilant. Be careful where you're getting your information from. There's a lot of misinformation out there. The Russian propaganda machine is great. It's great at getting into the minds and medias of other countries outside of there. So take everything with a grain of salt. As weird as it seems, Twitter is probably one of the best resources, because if it's not real, people get called out on it really quickly. There's people that are very, very smart and very talented that'll call people out on their BS very quickly. So that's honestly one of the best places to get your information from, because like I can watch things on, like you said, you catch snippets of Russian media and just have, being able to speak Russian, I'll listen to what they say, and it's like, oh my God, you know what I mean? How can this be true? So be vigilant of what you're listening and where you're getting your information from. Said in Slava Ukraini.
Slava Ukraini. Yeah.